What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with an absolute banger. Today we're coming in talking about the time that I smoked out the airport bathroom, and it was an absolutely terrible idea, and you should never do this. But before we dive into the video, there's a couple things I want to mention. First off, drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and second off, check out Goblin420.com for all the hot new merch. What are you waiting on? We got beautiful hoodies, t-shirts, we got all sorts of accessories, everything you could dream of, we got it on Goblin420.com. So head over to the merch site and check it out, and since YouTube took away my ad revenue, your guys' merch purchases are more important than ever, and I greatly appreciate them. Thank you all for tuning into the video, and without further ado, let's dive right into it. Now, I want to preface this video by saying that this is really stupid to do. And the absolute last place you should have a smoke sesh at is the airport. However, I was wasted and I was fiending, and I get very anxious on airplanes, which hopefully is a good enough explanation as to why I did this. So, to give a little backstory to this happened back in September of last year, so this was pretty recent actually. And at this point, I had just stopped doing pretty much all hard drugs, right? During the first half or so, even a little over half of 2020, I was on an absolutely mental drug binge. I was doing blow, I was doing K, I was doing pretty much anything I could get my hands on. I was doing Xanax, anything I could touch. Now, usually, I would just pop a Xan before a flight and I'd be fine, you know, like whatever, so what? But at this point, I was really trying to stop doing that. Because even though it wasn't like doing Xanax, I knew that if I kept taking them before flights, eventually there would be a day where I was stressed out and not boarding a flight, and I'd be like, well, if I just take one, it's just like when I fly. So I decided, fuck this, we're dropping the Xans. I'm sick of it. Now, it was a very slow kind of wean-off process for me, right? I originally was taking them all the time, then I slowed down and started taking them less frequently, then I only took them before flights, and now we got to this point. This was one of my first flights that I'd taken in a long time without any sort of heavy drugs, without any bars, really K, anything like that, you know? So I was a little anxious. The weather on this particular day was also not great. It was very windy, which makes me even more anxious. I don't know why flying gets to me like that, because I fly all the fucking time. You know, I got my American rewards, you know, I get my miles, all that. I fly plenty. But I get terrified every time, even on the shortest flights, like 20 minutes. I'll be sitting there tapping my knees the entire time. I get so anxious on planes. So I get to the airport on this particular day, and I get there nice and early. My strategy ever since I stopped popping bars is I gotta get to the airport very early so I have enough time to get wasted out of my fucking mind. It's the only way that I can survive a flight without freaking the fuck out, because I'll be borderline unconscious, which means I won't have time to think about if the plane's going down, because I'll be so inebriated. So I get to the airport a good 2.5 hours before my flight, maybe even 3 hours. I remember I got there very early. And I'm flying out of St. Louis on this particular flight, and for those of you guys who have ever flown through that airport, Lambert, you will know it is horrid. It is the most boring airport I think I've ever been to. There's nothing to do. It's just so ugly. Like, you know how you go to other airports, like, for example, O'Hare, or, like, really plenty of other airports, you know, LAX, stuff like that. You go to other airports where they at least have, like, some cool windows, like a nice view. No, this place is built like Supermax. It's absolutely fucked in there. It's the most depressing airport I've ever been to, which only fueled my desire to get blackout wasted. So I'm going to get my bags checked, and I'm going over to security, and in my bag, I've got a couple little goodies. Now, I stopped flying with Xans and Coke or anything like that. However, I still like to bring a little bit of concentrate with me. I've learned through my time of flying that TSA is not really looking for drugs. They're like, you'd have to be moving a lot of fucking weed through for them to really give a shit. They don't care if you bring a gram or two of wax. You could probably throw a bong in your bag, and as long as it's reasonably clean, you're completely fine. Now, I would never go to the extent of throwing bongs in my bag, but on this particular day, I had a gram of concentrate with me, and I also had this little e-rig device, right? I had this tiny little son of a bitch that I'd gotten from a company I'd worked with on promo before. I have a whole lineup of these things. Honestly, one of my favorite things about making YouTube videos like the ones I do is that I get sent a bunch of cool shit, like e-rigs and stuff. So I have a nice little lineup for whenever I travel. Honestly, I don't remember which one I brought with me on this day, but all I remember is it was good enough for me to want to bring it with, so it must have ripped. But we get up to TSA, and I'm going through, and everything's all fine and dandy. I've got like a gram of concentrate. I've got my little e-rig. It's whatever, dude. They're not looking for that. They're looking for Glocks, okay? They don't give a shit. Glocks are people stuffed in suitcases. Either one works. But I'm going through, and they pull my bag aside as I get through the metal detector and wait on the other side. Now, at this point, I'm getting a little anxious. I'm like, they never really pull my bag aside, but luckily, I realized it was because I forgot to take my Nintendo Switch out of the bag. I do this very often. I only ever pull out my laptop just because I'm lazy, and usually I don't have any problems. But on this particular day, I guess they thought I implanted a frag grenade in my Switch. So they unzipped my bag, and I'm looking at the guy, and I'm like, oh, come on, dude. Don't fandangle around in there too much, man. The Switch is near the top. Like, don't you wiggle your fingers down there, Realistically, he probably would have just thrown the shit away, I had 1 gram. Like, what the fuck are you going to do? I was going to buy more when I landed, So, like, whatever. But luckily, he didn't fandangle around too much. So they scanned my Switch, and I'm through security. Now, I'm pretty much bone sober at this point. I may be a little bit stoned because I took a dab in the car, but I was not nearly fucked up enough to board a plane. So my game plan is beginning to unfold. Now, I fly American almost every time, and at this airport, American is pretty much always Terminal C. Terminal C at the St. Louis airport it's just a long, straight hallway with a couple Hudson News stores in it and like this one bar that's super mediocre, and they pour the drinks very weak. So you gotta go in and blow a bag. You gotta ask for double shots every time. Are they really weak? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm just a chronic alcoholic. But to me, they're far too weak. So I go over to this bar, and I'd already been here plenty of times. I've flown out of St. Louis a million times. So I get into this bar, and I sit at the bar top, and I immediately order my go-to drink for airports, which is a vodka cranberry with a double shot of Grey Goose in it. Now, the reason I order that, and I only order vodka crans at airports, or really shitty, like, seedy bars, is because for some reason, airport bars can never make a good fucking drink. I don't know what it is. You would expect they have so much business at the airport, they would want some guy who's whipping up crazy cocktails to make them more money. But no, you go to the bar, they never have a cocktail menu. The only time I've ever been to a bar that had a real menu was at LAX and in Miami. Those are the only 2 times. But in the Midwest, fuck no, dude. You get shots, you get vodka crans, or you go fuck yourself, right? So I chose to get a vodka cran instead of going to fuck myself. So I'm sitting at the bar, and I get my first vodka cran, and I've got plenty of time to blow. I have a few drinks, and I'm passing some time, and listen, I'm not the kind of guy who talks to people around me at the bar, right? I'm on my laptop playing RuneScape, bro. I'm grinding. We've got Slayer tasks to do, boys. So I'm sitting here getting nice and drunk, and I'm maybe 2 or 3 drinks deep, and the bartender comments on how quick I'm drinking. He's like, oh, man, you better make sure you're good for your flight. And I'm like, my man, you are standing across from a chronic, degenerate, alcoholic, drug addict sleazebag. Trust me, I'll be good for anything after 3 vodka crans. You got to get me like 15 to really get me going cuckoo, So I'm enjoying my drinks, and he serves me another, and the bartender I felt like he was almost purposefully ignoring me towards the end of my time at the bar, because I was drinking too much, I guess. I was a little afraid as time progressed that I was going to be cut off, and I'm like, dude, there's like 2 bars in this whole fucking airport, dude. If this guy cuts me off, I'm boned, dude. I'm going to cry, So I'm trying to slow down a little bit and take my time, and I'm sipping my drinks. And as I get a nice buzz going and start to get a little bit drunker, I start fiending for some smoke. Now, that would normally be no problem. I had a little disposable vape on me, which is fine, and that could hold me over usually until I landed. However, when I went to rip this thing, My disposable was dead, and it was the only one I brought with me. This was not one of the ones that charges, unfortunately, so I'm sitting there and I'm pretty blown. When I'm nice and drunk, I need some smoke in my lungs. I don't care what's in the smoke, dude. I could smoke I really don't care, dude. I could smoke dog shit. As long as there's smoke in my lungs, I'm down. When I'm drunk, I'll take it, right? So, at this point, I'm trying to weigh out my options here. I'm like, okay, disposable's dead and it's not rechargeable. I don't have any flour. And then it dawns upon me that I still have my little e-rig in my bag. Now, normally, I just bring this with me for, whenever I get to whatever destination I'm going to, so I don't have to go buy a new rig or anything like that. I never really busted out at airports. This was an exception because I was fucking fiending. Absolutely fiending. So I sit at the bar for a few more minutes and try to decide what I'm gonna do, and I decide pretty quickly, it's time to take a fucking dab. So I close out my tab, and at this point, I'm pretty drunk, but I'm not super wasted yet. However, I made the mistake of not giving the alcohol enough time to catch up with me, because I got up from the bar and I started walking to the nearest bathroom. I go into this bathroom and it's packed. I'm like, yo, no way. We got to go somewhere more low-key than this, Like, there's way too many people in this bathroom. So I'm wandering through the terminal a little bit, looking around for a bathroom to go post up and maybe try to take a dab. As I'm walking through the terminal, I realize that I've been wandering around for so long that the liquor's starting to hit me. Maybe it's because I was drunk and just not paying attention, but I almost forgot about the fact that I was even searching for a bathroom. I was just fucking walking at this point. And I was starting to stumble a little bit. Not too crazy, but there was a couple times where, I got caught up walking and, I would stumble a little bit. So I knew at this point, yeah, I'm fucking drunk. I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but me, whenever I drink and a little bit of time passes after, I feel almost this heaviness come over me when I really start to get drunk. I'll be standing up or I'll be walking and it almost feels like something's pulling me down just a little bit, Like I've got this slight little bit of G-force hitting and it's fucking slapping on this day. So I find a bathroom eventually, and the one I found was damn near at the very end of the C terminal. So it was almost empty. There was a few people in here, but it was huge. Tons of stalls in this bathroom. So I was like, bet, this is perfect. Now, listen, call me an asshole, call me what you will, but I went into the handicap stall because I like to have some more space, and there was no one in there that was handicapped that I could see yet. If someone came in that was handicapped, I'd probably just limp my way out, whatever. I gotta do what I gotta do, man. Now, I sit down in this stall, and I open up my bag, and I pull out my little e-rig that I've got. Now, I didn't have my carrying case for it with me, but I just had everything I needed in this little plastic bag, right? I had my e-rig, I had my carb, I had my tool, I had my concentrate, everything I needed ready to fucking rumble. So, I busted out, and I'm still sitting here on this toilet thinking that this is just a brilliant idea. I'm like, dude, no one's gonna know, bro. No one has a nose, bro. It's perfectly fine, So I'm sitting in this bathroom, and I'm really fucking drunk. So I have no sense of whether this is a good thing to do or not. I drop a monstrous dab in there, and luckily because I'm drunk, the first one I pretty much zeroed the entire hit, with absolutely zero consideration of whether or not people around me could see smoke rising from my stall. I had zero shits to give, absolutely none. So I'm sitting there and I take my first dab, and it got me right. I sit there and I'm trying so hard to zero it. I'm starting to sweat, my throat's getting ticklish, and I finally do it. Now, luckily, I had a water in my bag, so I got a swig of that. But after that first sip of water, I was like, you know what? Let's take another dab. I'm already here. I fucking need it. So, I drop another dab in the banger, and this is where things get a little hectic. Now, I'm very fucked up, and I'm sitting here, and I drop my second dab. And I realize that I had placed down my phone. I was like, oh shit, I wanted to check my phone. So I'm holding my my e-rig, in my one hand. And I reach over to get my phone. And when I reach over, I don't know what happened. I don't know what process occurred, but I dropped the whole fucking e-nail on the ground. The glass broke, the carb cap rolled into the fucking stall next to me, and it is fucked. There's a little puddle of dirty dab water on the ground, and I'm sitting here, and I'm like, bro, no way, it was heating up, dude. I had a dab in that, bro. It was, I just dropped, it was fucking, it was heating, dude. come on, bro. I just cold started it. Like, what are you doing? So, I mean, not a full cold start. It was still kind of warm from the last dab. But either way, dude, listen, with those little e-nails, I feel like cold starting is better. I don't know. But either way, back on topic here. So, I'm absolutely defeated at this point, and I realize that there's no way in hell I'm picking any of this up. The only thing I picked up was the battery to my e-rig. I did not even attempt to ask whoever was next to me, if there even was anyone. I didn't spend too much time looking for my carb cap. I just know that that shit rolled in the stall next to me, and that was not good. I don't know if it stopped in the stall next to me. It might have went through a few stalls, actually. I don't know where it ended up. But either way, I mean, grats whoever found a carb cap on the floor. I hope you didn't use it. So, I realized pretty quickly it's time for me to get the fuck out of this bathroom. And there is also smoke billowing up from this e-rig that I've dropped. I have no way to stop the smoke at this point. I realized pretty quickly that it's going to get really ugly if I don't get the fuck out of this bathroom. So I take the battery part off and I took a piece of toilet paper and I just stuck it on the coil to hopefully absorb all the wet concentrate that was still smoking and spilled all over. I'm talking my whole device was like sticky, at least the top of it, not the whole thing. But the whole top was just sticky because the concentrate had gotten just warm enough where it just spilled out all over the device. It was terrible, right? Some of it got on the glass, some of it got on the device. It was just not it. So I picked this thing up and I put some toilet paper in the top while it was still hot. Very lucky this thing didn't set on fire. And I stuffed it in my bag and I fucking dipped. Now, once I walked out of the bathroom, I was like, okay, we made it out. I didn't even stop to wash my hands. I wonder, everyone probably thought I was filthy in that bitch. I was like, no, dude, I gotta fucking go, bro. Like, I'll go wash my hands later. We're fucking leaving right now. So I got out of that bathroom, glass still on the ground, carb cap still on the fucking ground, right? Luckily, I still had my tool, but like everything else, I still had my concentrate too, but like the glass part and the carb, done for, gone. So I get out of the bathroom and I realize that even though I only got one dab in, I'm feeling fantastic. And once that dab hit me, I got a little more optimistic about drinking some more. I still had maybe a good 30 to 45 minutes before we started boarding, so I headed back to the bar that I was at before, and I was like, bet, this is perfect. I go back to the bar. And I'm sitting at the bar, and I get quite a few more vodka cranberries. Now, I don't know if this was just the luckiest day of my life, because A, guy opened my bag through TSA but didn't find my shit. B, I dropped my shit on the bathroom floor, smoke billowed up, and no one said a word. And then C, I went back to the same bar, and it was a different bartender who couldn't tell me that I'd already drank too much. So I walked in happy-go-lucky as can be, and I sit down at this bar, and I honestly couldn't tell you how many more vodka cranberries I drank. I don't know. But I drank enough where it got to the point where I started feeling really sick. I felt super nauseous. As soon as it came time for my flight to board, I closed my tab and I left and I walked over to my gate, which luckily was fairly close to the bar, because I was still not walking super straight, probably less straight than before, but at this point, I don't necessarily remember how I was walking as much as I remember how fucking wasted I was. So I'm not feeling good, and I go and I get on this plane. And I realize as I sit down, I'm still feeling pretty fucking anxious, and I'm like, oh no, dude. My nerves have not been calmed. I'm wasted out of my mind. I'm a little bit stoned, and I'm very nauseous. This is going to be a flight out of hell. And that's exactly what it ended up being. See, the flight from St. Louis to Miami is about 3.5 hours, so not like a super long flight, but for a domestic flight, it's fairly long, right? Also, I don't have a passport, so I've never flown international, so this is one of the longer flights that I've done, right? Probably one of the longest, there's not many longer flights that I've ever been on. So we board this plane, everyone gets seated, and, I'm managing to keep my stomach at bay for a little while until we got in the air. Now, we take off, and the captain hops on the thing, and he's like, hey, we're going to keep the seat buckle sign on for a little while after takeoff. It's a bit windy out today. It might get bumpy at certain points. Always keep your seat buckle on when seated in case of unexpected turbulence. And I'm sitting here, and I'm like, oh my God, bro. This is the worst thing ever, dude. My stomach is like a cauldron of bullshit ready to get yacked up, dude. And the plane is shaking it the fuck up. So we're in the air, and I'm sitting there, and I'm trying so hard to fall asleep, but my stomach will not let me. I knew that this was not going to end well. Maybe not even 30 minutes into the flight, I was already feeling sick. I knew I had to go yak. I was trying to hold it down for dear life until I'm sitting on this plane and I puked a little bit in my mouth. And that's when I knew, okay, it's time to go to the bathroom. So I get the fuck up and I go up to the bathroom, and thank fuck nobody else was in it, so I got straight in there. And I yacked my fucking guts out, dude. I yacked a fucking lung up, dude. I swear to God, I was puking for a good 15 minutes straight, dude. I got scared at first because I thought I was puking up blood because of all the vodka cranberries. I was like, no, dude, I can't die on the airplane, bro. They're not gonna land for me. I'm not even sitting business class, they're not gonna land for me, bro. No shot. I'm not a first class passenger. So, either way, I'm yakking up all this vodka cranberry and whatever else I had in my system, and finally, after puking, I felt quite a bit better. I was still feeling a little nauseous, and I still felt like shit, and now I had a headache, but I was still better than before, and that's all that counted. Now, I went back to my seat, and I was so focused on how shitty I felt that I wasn't even noticing the turbulence. It wasn't really bothering me. This was a fairly bumpy flight for the duration of it that I was awake, but after I got back to my seat after puking, I just passed the fuck out immediately. I knocked out all the way until we landed. In fact, the only thing I remember about waking up is we were already descending as soon as I woke up. I could see the roofs of buildings and shit. So by the time we landed, I was pretty much bone sober because I'd slept off and also puked off all the alcohol in my system. I was also not stoned at all, and I was very grateful that I slept through the whole flight, because normally, especially on bounty flights like this one, I could only imagine how I would have acted if I wasn't fucked out of my mind. Did I break my e-rig? Yes. But you know what? I think at the end of the day, it was for the greater good. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the new merch at goblin420.com. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, gamers.